Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the OWise Real Life Stories. Today, I am chatting with my good friend, Cece. So, Cece and I were introduced through another mutual good friend of ours, and we just connected, I would say, immediately. Very similar kind of philosophies and outlooks on everything. And so, yeah, our friendship went very deep very quickly. And I'm really, really happy to have you here today. And I know this is going to be a first for you, talking about your diagnosis. So really appreciate you coming on. And as with all these chats, we start by saying, like, just if you want to begin, wherever you want to start, just tell me your story. I'd love to hear it.
You. So my story began back in May 2022. And I was just watching TV one night with my husband, and I've always been one to check my boobs. We had an aunt when not by marriage, but an aunt that was married to an uncle who died of breast cancer when I was quite young. So I'd always been quite aware of checking your boobs. So just checking them, watching TV, and I found a lump quite close to under my right armpit. And I kind of thought, do you know what? You've had two mice, so benign tumours, benign lumps before. Once when I was 18, once shortly after my firstborn. And I thought it's probably just another one of those. I might not even mention it. But my husband sort of saw that I was feeling and sensed that I'd got a bit different. So he said, what's wrong? And I said, I think I've got a lump here. I said, maybe I should get it checked out. And he's like, you're definitely getting it checked out. So he's the worrier. I'm kind of the more relaxed one. So luckily he pushed me to go get it checked. And I think in the back of my head, I just kept telling myself, it's not going to be serious. It's not in your family. You're 33. Statistically, it's not going to be you. But I would say a little bit of me knew it felt different to the ones before the regular checker. So that was the end of May. We had a lot on for a week. We went away for a long weekend, and I think my first appointment was around the 8th or 9th of June. So I went to see a breast consultant, and she felt it. I went on my own because, again, I just thought this is just going to be nothing. And she felt it, and she had like a kind of small pocket ultrasound thing, not like a big machine. And she said, if naught was I wasn't worried, and 5 is it's cancer, I'd say it's 2, possibly it's 3. And it was still at that time when we were wearing masks, and I just had to ask if I could take my mask off because I was just floored. I just thought, hang on a minute, this is real. This is...
When you checked your previous 2, I guess nothing like that had been said to you. So,
they kind of said, I don't think it's dangerous, but we'll check it and scan it just in case. Whereas this time it could be 50-50. And it was like, okay, wow, that's quite serious. So it all happened quite quickly. I had my scan the next morning. But at the scan, they said to me, I have rheumatoid arthritis. I have all these other conditions. She said, it looks like a swollen lymph node. I really wouldn't be concerned. I had quite a horrible experience actually at that scan because I felt like she just wasn't taking me seriously. She said, you're young, it's not in your family. It looks to be in the lymph node. I had actually had a breast augmentation 9 months previously, and she kind of said, it's probably just on leak of the lymphatic system, and made me feel quite bad about it actually, because but she asked me if I had deodorant on because it would need to be removed for the scan, and I said no, I wear sea salt deodorant. And she said, oh, why do you bother with sea salt when you've gone and had implants and are affecting your lymphatic system as we speak? So immediately I was kind of racked with guilt. And since then, I've obviously known many, many breast consultants, lots of oncologists. They've all told me, you don't get cancer from an implant. We put implants in cancer patients. So why... The guilt that she made me feel, and the kind of, she kind of said, oh, you're young, it's not your family, you've got implants, it's just that. And she said...
It's very dismissive, and we hear this time and time again, and it's really hard to try and kind of educate professionals to not dismiss young people because we're trying to get young people heard more.
Yeah. It was, sorry, my thumb's gone up. I didn't mean to do that.
That's okay.
Yeah, so exactly, very dismissed. I was kind of filled with guilt and thinking, oh, if I've done this to myself, even if it is just silicone in my lymph glands, what have I done to myself? Is this really serious?
Yeah.
And she said, just go away for another monthly cycle of your period and come back and see. But, I just don't think it's that serious. So I went away, and my husband and I actually went to Ibiza for a few days, which was meant to be a lovely break. And halfway through the holiday, the lady began me called back and said, actually, the consultant's pretty adamant I should have done a biopsy. I still think it's fine and I wouldn't worry, but can you come back today or tomorrow? Like,
Wow.
it completely ruined the last few days of our break. So yeah, as soon as I got down, it changed shape, and I said, well, that doesn't seem. My gut just told me that didn't seem right for it to have changed shape, and she thought it looked a bit bigger. And again, I just thought this isn't right, but she reassured me again, said, really don't think it's anything to worry about. And then about 3 or 4 days later, I called, and it was a Saturday morning call. Again, I've been told that this was handled very well at all, but I got a call Saturday morning, rushing around, getting my daughter ready for gymnastics. My youngest was 2 at the time, kind of clinging to my leg. And she said, yeah, going on holiday, so just wanted to let you know before I went away. It did turn out to be a cancerous tumour, but it's not your problem, it's my problem now. And we'll take care of it, and we'll touch base when I'm about to book in the rest of the diagnostic And, at this point, I couldn't hear, I couldn't speak. I'd run upstairs to the loft to get away from the kids. My husband knew immediately that obviously it was bad news. 9th of July, and it will always stay with me, that date.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's when things kind of changed, really, forever.
Oh, yeah. What a way to get delivered that news, though. And also to say it's not your problem, it's mine.
Yeah, it was. I mean, I think I've never complained about that type of, but I do hear loads of stories about how it's handled, and I, yeah, it shouldn't be handled. Luckily, I have a cancer geneticist, and she said that I'm going to move teams, we're going to get you to a different hospital, we're going to get you better care. And from I had a breast cancer nurse and someone I could text and someone I could call. So thereafter, I was really, really looked after really well, and I can't fault my new team at all. But yeah, having that extra trauma when you difficult was really hard.
Really, really hard. So that was the 9th of July. And what happened kind of after that? Was there, I guess quite a few more tests. And then when did treatment start for you?
We had a family holiday booked. I think it was literally on the 12th or something like that, very soon after. And my oncologist and surgeon were just saying, just go. Nothing's going to change in a week. We've got to book in your CT scan, your full body MRI and everything. So just go and enjoy it. So we went away for a week, and I actually found it the most freeing week ever. The kids didn't really annoy me very much, and I just was really in the moment and just thought, gosh, this could be my last holiday ever with them. So I'm just going to create amazing memories. My husband and my sister said it was the total opposite. It was absolute hell on earth, and they just really had a really rough time. So we had this beautiful week away, came back. Luckily, it hadn't spread beyond my breast area. It was a lot bigger though than what the ultrasound picked up, just one small area. But the MRI found a kind of 5 centimetre area of mixture of DCIS and small tumours, and so it was each hurdle I kept getting told it's actually not just going to be a lumpectomy and a bit of radio, it's going to be this and that, and it just kept kind of always being the worst possible thing you could think of. And then chemo started on the 5th of August, so I had my chemo first. 12 weeks of paclitaxel weekly. And then I had the mastectomy, a full mastectomy and reconstruction at the same time. That was towards the end of 2022. And then 3 weeks of radio in February 2023. And my type of cancer was HER2 positive. So I continued to have the HER2 Herceptin treatment until September 23. So that was kind of my treatment plan.
treatment plan. And how did you find chemo? Did it have intense side effects?
Yeah, so I had it, at first they kind of said to me paclitaxel sort of chemo light, which I found quite unhelpful because I think people thought, oh, it's not going to be that bad. It's chemo. It's the lighter chemo because you have it every week. It's a lesser dose than other particular types of chemo. But actually, by week 3, my side effects were so extreme, they were already talking about reducing the dose, which we did do. But of course, at that point, you kind of think, oh, I'll put up with the stomach cramps and the diarrhea and the awful brains, itchy skin, and everything if it means it's going to go. But they said it was quite extreme the way I was acting for the perhaps because I've had an autoimmune disease for the last 20 years, arthritis.
Again, it goes back to that thing of like, when I was diagnosed, I was told, when you tell the children, don't tell them anything you can't guarantee. I feel like professionals need to know that too. You cannot tell someone how they're going to react to a chemotherapy. And I also had paclitaxel. I found it really, really hard. It was really, and it accumulated each week, and there were delays to chemo, and my bloods, dropped massively. So yeah, everyone is very, very individual. I also had an anaphylactic shock with paclitaxel. So you can have more allergies in that respect, I think, as well. Yeah, it's really, it kind of is that thing of, because being told, oh, it's relatively easier chemo, you're going to be like, maybe, okay, I shouldn't be feeling like this, and maybe I won't talk to my team. I don't know if you felt like that.
Yeah, well, I felt like I shouldn't really complain compared to my
Yeah.
friends or something else. So I kind of thought, I say my friends, but the people that I met within the community who are now my dear friends, it did kind of feel like I was complaining a little bit, and like maybe I should have been handling it better.
It's so hard. I remember being told when my chemo finished and I was still taking immunotherapy that that will be fine. Or the age-old one, radiotherapy is easy. And it's like, I was physically in the worst place when radiotherapy came around. I found it so hard, but I was like, oh, what's wrong with me? I shouldn't be finding this hard. It's all of this stuff, all of these things we hear, they do have an impact, and they can make you feel like something's wrong with you for not feeling like you're finding it easy. It's it's really important to kind of share this stuff and actually say, no, I found paclitaxel hard. And
on radiotherapy, I totally agree with you that they said it was going to be simple and easy, but actually I'd say the longevity of the side effects of radiotherapy has probably mentally affected me the worst in the last 6 to 12 months. I'm no out of treatment. I should be back to normal now, but the radiation fibrosis, I recently had another surgery to try and correct that. It goes on and on and on, actually, the issues from radiotherapy. And I don't.
I totally agree. Yeah. The tightness as well, and in the whole kind of area from it. Yeah, I completely agree that it was so. And actually, when I was in such a state with my radiotherapy team, and they were the ones that put me in touch with an oncology counsellor at that time, they said they hear it all the time, women coming into them that don't feel like it's going to be hard because they've been told, oh, you've done this, you've done chemo, or this is the easy part, and they rightly are like, it's misinformation, it's not true, and the tiredness with it that I had was huge.
Yeah, same.
So when you say you had, because you mentioned you had breast augmentation before you found your cancer, so when you had your mastectomy surgery, I'm assuming they removed the implant, did the mastectomy, and then replaced it with a new implant.
Yes, with a newer, larger implant, because obviously you remove the breast tissue and then kind of to try and get symmetry, they put in an implant.
And you had, at that time, you were having just single, is that correct? And
I had a single mastectomy. I did really, I and the percentages, and I really did contemplate doing both. It was HER2, so it's not, technically there isn't a higher risk that it will come back in the side, and everyone kept telling me it's more likely to come back in the same side or be secondary, which was quite terrifying to hear, than it to come back in the other side. So in the end, on balance, with I had to do a counselling session and everything, that we decided just to do the side that had the cancer.
Yeah. And how did you find kind of after surgery and kind of body image and symmetry? I guess they try their best. I know with mine, they try their best. And mine did a great job, and I am really, really happy with my new, I call them tummy tits, but boobs, whatever you want to say. But yeah, they're never the same, and that they're not. If you've only had like single, then they're not going to just be differences. And I think it can be really hard body image wise.
Yeah, and I think that's what I mean by radiotherapy sort of effectively affecting me most mentally, because so the mastectomy went really well, and surgery results were great, and I did have to have my nipple, so I had the areola but no nipple, so I was flat, and the plan was always down the line to either construct one or tattoo or whatever. But then radiotherapy really, really changed all that. The symmetry created. And I got radiation fibrosis. Pretty much, my physiotherapist was like, "This is one of the worst, I see." It went so hard and so solid and so high that it was just like being two completely different people. And I think maybe because I had a boob job before, it was very much like I felt so sorry.
Okay.
So selfish to be so upset about the cosmetic appearance when I've been so lucky to survive something that people don't survive, and the guilt of kind of just constantly looking at myself and being unhappy and thinking, just get over yourself and get over it. It was really hard. My surgeon was great, and he said, why don't we just give it another go and try and release the fibrosis, and we did that in February this year, and within 4 weeks it started to go hard again, and he couldn't really hide the sorrow on his face for me, because he said 12 months, but we don't know if it's because of my immune system. I also caught COVID in my recovery, and he thinks maybe that did something to it. I don't know, but it's already, after the surgery, it was symmetrical. Within 4 weeks, it started to do this again.
Could it be? They say radiotherapy impacts can go on for about 5 years, don't they? So could it be that, and that maybe once that period is passed, it would?
He just said that happens again, assume that it would just keep happening, and he kind of doesn't think mentally I should keep putting myself through that, but I'll look into that. I didn't know.
No, I mean, again, I'm not medically trained. Definitely have heard that 5-year thing about radiotherapy. I think it breaks my heart that you've said, the things that you just said about not feeling guilty about this kind of, the things that you were feeling towards your body, because there is so much of this. I think it's we talk a lot about this gratitude and grief, right? It's like, you can absolutely be grateful, completely grateful that your treatment's worked and you're here. But there can be deep, deep feelings of grief about your body changing, and also completely validated feelings around wanting to have it look as close to what you are going to be happy with. And I think that it's easy enough for me to say, right, like, that those feelings of guilt are not helpful. They're not going to. But I really feel like deeply, as woman to woman, I feel that, I get it, and I get that because I know with my surgery, I felt so many feelings of guilt too around it being a bit longer than reconstruction with implants. It was going to take, all of this stuff. But eventually, I think we have to, it's a time to be a bit selfish. And we've been through a lot, and it is okay to do anything that makes us feel more confident moving forward after breast cancer. So I just want to say that to you.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's so hard. I mean, on this topic too, actually, is the fact that I know you cold capped, didn't you, with chemo, which again, is in a similar vein. No one would ever say that's very vain to cold cap. It's like something that we do, because I cold cap too, to grab onto any kind of control, to keep ourselves from looking unwell, to hold on to some of our identity when life is throwing all of these massive curveballs. And you had great success, which I think is so important to share.
I was so lucky. I mean, even now when I go back to where I have my chemo, if I pop in to see the nurses, they literally kind of inspect my head. They're just so happy for me and so amazed. Yeah. Best result we've seen in years. I was really lucky. And I think, as you say, when I first got diagnosed, the amount of tears I cried thinking I'm going to lose my hair. Well, obviously I'm going to lose my hair. And I didn't even know about cold capping. It's just the most amazing invention. And then I got that with powerful, that's kind of the easy hair. And I think I lost a lot, and I still had that weekly fear of gently brushing my hair with the OWise, and always at one point my husband and I were counting the hairs. It got quite rather obsessed. And I'd say actually at the end of my 12 weeks, and then I stopped cold capping and I continued on with my immunotherapy. That's when it all came out. And I don't know if that's a common thing. I thought I kind of made it to the 12 weeks, but it's still the fact that it's still held, it's still here, that on reflection, I want people to know that even if it does start shedding at the end, it doesn't mean it's all going to go. Kind of, it's hard not to live in that fear that it's all going to go.
It's definitely, cold capping is hard. It's really hard psychologically, isn't it? Because there are no guarantees, and so you are kind of entering into it with this, well, it's all very uncertain, but I sometimes think to myself, I look at the people that don't cold cap and just go, no, we're going to get rid of the hair. They make that decision. It feels so empowering. And I felt ever so slightly, I'm grateful I cold capped. And again, like you, I kept loads of my hair during the paclitaxel weeks. And it was when I went on to AC that I lost quite a lot. But yeah, during those paclitaxel weeks, I really thought I was noticing it thinning, but I look back at pictures now, I'm like, wow, I kept so much of my hair. Like, had I not had the AC as well, it would have been, I think, a huge cold capping success story. Similar to my sister, she kept loads of her hair. But it is that you go into it not knowing if you're going to start thinning or if you're going to get patches. And that is, yeah, it's hard. It's hard, but it's an amazing, amazing machine. And I think it needs to be talked about more, and more people need to know about it, and there need to be more machines for everyone to be able to have the choice to cold cap if they want to try it. I just love hearing success stories, and I think, yeah, because I saw you quite soon after, I was like, wow, your hair looked amazing.
Yeah, I know. Well, it's like you say, for me, it felt so thin compared to, but from the outside, it was amazing. And like you say, I look back at pictures and I think, gosh, I'm so lucky I had that hair. And now I've kind of got the crazy, really thick at the top and really curly underneath. And I'm having to, the chemo regrowth has been quite wild. Trying to flex day. But yeah, I was super lucky. And I think also around kind of the knowledge of knowing how the hat works and advocating for yourself. Because I think advocating for yourself during this whole thing is something that should be spoken about as well. And I remember a couple of times thinking, oh, I don't think the machine's working, or it's not on my head properly. And I kind of sat there quietly, and then I thought, no, don't sit here quietly. It's your hair.
Yes. We all have that tendency, don't we, to be like, oh, I don't want to offend them, but it's not feeling, no, speak up and say, like, I don't think it's connected here. Like, they will tighten it, they will readjust it. That's so true. So true.
And actually one time I had a machine that kept going off and it kind of was pulsating, and I was like, there's something wrong with this, and I waited half an hour, and then when I told the nurses, they were like, oh my goodness, why didn't you say? We absolutely thought you quickly switched and out after now on. If you're all right, I'm going to say something. So yeah, speak up.
Well, that's amazing. Is sometimes it can be getting a diagnosis the first time we kind of do almost speak up in many ways, or like feel like we have to find our voice, advocate for ourselves. Yeah, it's hard. It's a hard shift to become that, yeah, that person receiving treatment, maybe when you've been well before, and then having to say like, this doesn't feel right, or that, yeah, but it's a process in growth, right? And you and I speak a lot about how through this very uncomfortable diagnosis and period of deep grief and fear and stuff, that there is a lot of room for growth and change and new beginnings. And so I'd love to talk to you about kind of where you've come with your treatment finishing, what you've maybe done for your mental health, and all of that stuff, because I always find that fascinating when we chat.
Gosh, that's a big subject, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think
And if you can keep it to, yeah.
I think even saying this makes me feel like I don't want to say it. So I learned to be selfish. And that word selfish, to me, my whole life for 33 years until I got to that diagnosis, was just like, you can't be selfish. You've always got to put first. Don't think about yourself. You know, selfish is an evil word. And I'd had therapy for years where my therapist kept saying, I want to hear times when you've been selfish. I want you to come back and tell me stories. And I didn't really ever get what that meant. And I think for the first time in my life, I learned to prioritize myself. And it was a really hard journey and it wasn't easy. And I think it's affected some of my relationships and in my personal, you know, my life. And there's been some big periods of adjustments as those relationships have had to take on a different dynamic, perhaps just internally for me, maybe not for them. You know, maybe they're my head and no idea what I'm talking about. But it's been a big change of just learning that sometimes you have to say no. Sometimes you have to figure out what works for me. That's definitely been my biggest change. And at first I thought that was really uncomfortable and I didn't like it. But now I'm really grateful. I'm really grateful for it.
It does feel really uncomfortable to start with if you've always put yourself quite low down on the list of priorities and done everything for everyone. I was reading the Glennon Doyle book during my treatment. Remind me what it's called, because my memory is. Have you read it?
Read that one.
Oh, it's a fantastic book, Untamed. I was reading it during treatment, and one of the most powerful bits I remember, and I hold up really close now, is a conversation that she was having with one of her children about disappointing people. And she was like, you have to disappoint people. You have to, you know, when something feels like you've got to do something, or you can't, you're not feeling like you're meant to be somewhere, whatever it is, disappoint people. And she said, even if I'm disappointing you, and she said, absolutely, like. And I just remember thinking, God, that she was a recovered people pleaser, Glennon Doyle. And so the book is definitely one. We always share books. Definitely read it. It's an amazing, amazing book. But yeah, disappointing people. It's uncomfortable, but we can't. If you're making everybody else happy around you, the likelihood is you're disappointing yourself.
Yeah,
You're not prioritizing yourself. So yeah, I love that was a lesson that you've taken from all of this, because I think it's very freeing, very freeing.
it is very freeing. I think the other one possibly is I've been on a pathway for a while, kind of learning about the difference between pain and suffering. And I was probably about 10 years ago or so that I realised that there is a huge difference between pain and suffering. Pain is very much real. It's a physical thing in our body. And suffering is kind of all the chatter in your head that goes along with that. And I think I already kind of got a grip of that, but through, the brutality and the side effects of chemo and everything else, it really strengthened how much I had to work on my mind, how much keeping my mind strong and reading these amazing books, including the New Earth, which is one I shared with you.
Yeah.
Just feeling yourself spiraling, and it's okay to spiral, feel all those feelings. You're gonna have down days, but just trying to catch yourself and realizing, yes, this is painful, like the cold cap. This is painful, this is cold, this is real. But if I sat there thinking, oh gosh, I can't believe I've got to do this, I've got cancer, I can't believe, how did I get cancer? If I went down that path, the cold cap was worse. Whereas music, got myself present, focused on my breathing, the suffering went away. The pain was there, the suffering. So that's another huge thing that I'm really grateful to have had cancer, which sounds a bit bizarre. And sometimes people look at me like, how can you even say those words in a sentence? But I am grateful to have had cancer to strengthen that distinction.
That's one of the hugest reframes I think we can have in any situation, because life is painful. Life will present us with so many challenges, but we are in control of our reactions, as we know, and that does mean that we're in control of, in a way, what you're saying, which is how much we suffer. Because I remember reading this again of another book. I love this. This has become Cece and Carly's book club. It's a great book called Good Morning, I Love You by Dr. Shauna Shapiro, and she talks about an equation, and it is suffering equals pain times resistance. So if the resistance is 0, your pain can be, off the scale, but your suffering will not be, because you're accepting, and there is that thing, and it's not to diminish anyone's experiences. Pain is, like you say, such a valid, horrendous, feel it, sit with it. It is there. However, like, even after my double mastectomy, I had an amazing visualization meditation, and I was in a lot of physical pain. And whenever I listened to it, and it would just take me out of it, it did allow me to be able to go back to sleep, to be able to kind of just soften into it a bit, surrender into it. And it doesn't take away the pain, but there is something about it allows you to almost just melt into it a bit more. So I love that equation. I often think about it.
Yeah, I need to write that down somewhere. It's great.
I'll send it to you. And read the book. It's a great book about compassion. And yeah, I love that book. I'm going to reread it again. And so how are you feeling now? Because often, after treatment finishes, it can be this very daunting space. And, for anyone that's kind of going through it now, it's great to hear kind of, because when you said you finished treatment, it lasts in November 23, did you say?
So treatment ended last week of August or early September 23.
Yeah. So, it's not even been a year. I would call that quite a raw period after treatment finishes. So I would love to hear kind of how you are, anything you're doing that helps you, with all the things that come after you finish treatment with a breast cancer diagnosis. There's quite a lot that comes with it.
Mm-hmm. So I think we actually met as I was coming towards the end of treatment. We were walked together by our lovely friend, and I think I met you. I was quite a mess, and I remember meeting. Oh my goodness, you lifted me up so much, knowing there was hope and there was light, and you saying, actually, this is possibly the worst time once you've completed treatment and you have survived, because you describe it as the train hitting you, something like
my goodness. Yeah, you stop and firstly, I feel like you just get a diagnosis and you are just thrust onto this train, and whether you're having chemo, whether you're having radiotherapy, surgery, whatever your treatment plan looks like, you're on this train and it's just chugging along, and you're like meeting new people, and then it stops.
Yeah.
And when it stops,
driving the train, right, as well. So
yeah.
you're not even in control. You're just on
No,
it.
completely not. Exactly. And then
And you're on your own, and there's less checks, and there's less, it was a really, really hard part. You're cancer free and done, it will start being normal again. But actually for you, you've been hit so hard by trauma that I only started processing that I'd even had cancer. And it was like, oh gosh, I had cancer, I could have died, and like, what's that mean? And it
yeah,
was really, really difficult time. And I think for me, exercise, since I had my first daughter, has always been the thing that made me mentally stronger. Through chemo, I was just too weak to do it. I hear of people swimming and doing stuff, and I'm in absolute awe of them, but I just had no capacity left for any form of exercise apart from a gentle walk. And even on the immunotherapy and the fact that I take autoimmune suppressants anyway for my RA, there was just no space. And so I didn't really have that thing that balance. I was in a really dark emotional time, and I had therapy. And then, but I started exercising again. And I'd say that now that I exercise 3-4 times a week, I'm probably, I'm in the best mental state I have been in the last 2 years.
it's
So
amazing to hear.
yeah,
It does. It can really, I think firstly, anyone that's watching this, if you are in treatment and you are struggling to be physical, to move, again, that is how I was. And I was a bit similar to you. I was like, oh my God, some people are working through treatment, like it's just not impacting. We're all so different. And the more conversations I have with people, the more I realize everyone is having such different responses to treatment and, different physical reactions. So firstly, just know that if you can't work out now, that's all right. But yes, after movement, building up that exercise, I think it also helps you to build trust in your body again.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I'm glad you raised that, because that's, for me, the other thing was when I got diagnosed, I was the fittest I'd ever been in my life. Every day, I had like lowest high muscle mass. I'm a vegan. I've been a vegetarian since I was 4. Healthy diet, not drinking very much, and then it came, and for me, it was like, well, if you can do absolutely everything and still get breast cancer, what's the point, actually?
Mm.
And I think I went for a period when treatment ended of overindulging and eating, and obviously I wasn't working out because I didn't have the energy, and just kind of spiraled and almost rebelled against who I thought I was and what I thought was important, because I thought it didn't matter.
Mm.
Members were a bit worried that, they knew that I needed to. Even my therapist said, I know that when you're taking control of your health and having loads of cooking healthy meals and doing that, you feel better. Like, you've got to get back there. And I just thought, well, why should I? Because, you just get cancer anyway. And it was so silly of me, because I know now, looking back, I handled, although I had really awful physical side effects, like my bloods were always good, and I never missed a week of chemo, and they were always high. That was because I was in a good place before I got.
Yeah,
Maybe it stopped my spread because I was so. You just don't know, and I think at all times you should just try and be the healthiest version. How that's not going to do you any negative, So that's not going to. Finally back there. I'm finally back to cooking, enjoying meals, working out, and just feel in control again and trust my body, as you say, because I lost trust in it. I thought, well, I've done absolutely everything I can for you, and you've still, gone and got cancer.
that's amazing advice. Yeah, really, really good. You've inspired me to get out, do some movement today, and start cooking a bit more.
I mean, I don't do it a lot. It's only like once or twice a week. Still, it's not takeaways.
No, that's so good, so good. And yeah, I think this chat, you've said, yeah, always, every time we talk, I take so much from our chats, and feel very, very grateful to our friend who introduced us, whose birthday it is today, funnily enough. Of all the days we would
Hey,
organise this for, we didn't realise at the time. Isn't that funny? So, yeah, I think, I I talk to a lot of people, and I feel really grateful to have a lot of connections in the community. But sometimes you just meet people and you're like, oh, we're going to be friends. And that's what's happened with us. And yeah, I love that we've connected. It's all, it's a bit rubbish that it was breast cancer that brought us together, but
Yeah,
there are positive silver linings that come out of hard stuff, right?
absolutely. Yeah, you're definitely one of my people.
I've loved talking to you today. Thank you for sharing. I know it was, it was emotional for you, and it's the first time you have done so. I really, really appreciate it. And I know anyone watching will get a lot of strength and hope from you. So just know that sharing your story is such a powerful thing to do. So thank you.
Thank you.